little sticker that says record.
Didn't do it.
You people out there, everyone has got to remind me to record.
I was literally just going to say that, and you cut me off.
All right. So, hey, so we just pressed the record button. So hello, everyone who's watching this on video. Let me just give you the quick screen flash right here. It is BusinessPRO TV. It is episode 8, and it is October 12th. And I am Alex Glassey, and that is Stephanie Gorczynski. And we have got a fantastic show for you today. What are we talking about today, Steph?
Competition.
Competition. But what does competition have to do with pricing? That's what I'd like to know.
You would be surprised. It's you know what? Like I say, it's a nice obstacle to be aware of, but it's not an obstacle. You just, it's just part of business. So.
Well, it's actually not an obstacle. Like you think it's an obstacle, but really what it comes down to is that it's actually an opportunity. You can actually use your competitors, as we shall see, not to have them hurt us, but for us to use them in ways that they have never even imagined, which is awesome.
Yep.
Hey, listen, I've got a little picture here, as I always do, to start us off. Let me share this with everybody here. And Friday the 13th in New Zealand. Oh, my goodness gracious me.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, well, hope everything goes well. Anyway, let us take a look at this. This is a...
Oh, gosh, no.
This is a photograph from yesterday in Saskatchewan, Canada. So Saskatchewan is a huge rectangular province, just about in the middle of Canada, not quite. So they had some snow. And so a little bit of gratitude here. This is the gratitude slide, a little gratitude for, first of all, the beauty of the snow sitting on these leaves. Also, some gratitude that I'm not in Saskatchewan anymore, so I don't have to deal with snow. We don't have snow out here on the West Coast of Canada. And also a big gratitude for everyone here who's online, who's watching, who's participating. Give yourselves all a pat on the back for continuing to make this investment in time for yourself and your business and your family. So enjoy this for 3 seconds. All right, now let's get back to it. Enough of that. We are BusinessPRO TV, and we are live Tuesdays and Thursdays, which it is right now. It is a Thursday afternoon, just after 5 p.m. Pacific. If you're watching this live right now over in YouTube Live, hey, listen, come on over to f2f.live/AlexG. First of all, you'll catch up to us because you're watching it 30 seconds later, and you'll be able to join in the chat and even come on and share your mic and cam. Come on and say hi from wherever you happen to be. And in the future, we're always there on those particular dates. Today, we got that one. As always, I want to start off here to just remind you as business owners that you have the power, we have the power to design the business we want. Ultimately, we're going to be living in the business, however it happens to turn out, and therefore it's incumbent upon us to make it the best possible thing we can. No one else is going to do it for us. It is not only within our power, but it is our responsibility. So, no complaints, no, this, no that, no, we chose this life. Now let's go and make this the hell of a life, the life that we all want, okay? So we always start off with that. We're going to talk about pricing today. This is the third pricing session, I think, the third C of pricing, how to use your competitors to gain valuable insights into your customers. Any homework? You were going to use the pricing worksheet, which we talked about last time. Got a few comments, and let's just roll through them one at a time. So first of all, one of our Russian viewers, literally from Russia, said, hey, can I get 50 items into the pricing spreadsheet? And so the answer is no, but it's a qualified no. You can get 10 in for sure. And then if you really want to go more, you can do that in a couple of different ways. One of them is to group like items. So if you've got red widgets, blue widgets, green widgets, purple widgets, it's like when I go to the store and I buy peppers I always grab, they're all marked differently, right? Your green peppers are different from your yellow peppers, different from your orange peppers. I just grab them all in, put them in the same thing, and then just smile at the checkout person as we go through it, just totally mess up their inventory. But the same thing here, right? If you've got a bunch of items that are the same, you can group items, and that's one way of doing it. But the other way of doing it is to simply create 5 copies, multiple copies of the spreadsheet, put in all your items. Just remember one thing, that you need to take the total fixed costs, right? So you're going to have fixed costs, just divide those by 5, let's say, and then put the net, put one fifth of the fixed cost into the fixed cost area. And then those 10 items will not will have some fixed cost to deal with, right? Otherwise, what you'll get is you'll get 10 items with really, really high recommended prices, because those 10 items are supposed to deal with the entire fixed cost, and you'll have the other 40 items with really, really lower recommended prices because they don't have any fixed cost to deal with. So just use one of the spreadsheets, figure out your fixed cost. Let's say it's $45,000. Then just put $9,000 into each one of those spreadsheets. Okay, so that's the answer to that one. I needed more time to fully absorb the worksheet. Yeah, and so here's what I want to say about that. First of all, we are recording. You can always go back and watch. But I am today we're going to go through another example, and so we'll just walk through it. I think the key thing is, whenever you're learning something that is, new and has got a bit of detail to it, of course, the key thing is to just get into it, right? Go and open it up, make a copy of it, and just start to walk through and just get a sense of what's going on. I mean, that's how you learn things, right? And I think you'll soon enough figure out how it works. And if you don't, then, that's why we're here. You can ask a question or fill out the survey, right? For those of you who do, I love going through it, and we always answer any of the outstanding questions that way, either directly with an email or like this. How do I get my clients to listen to me about pricing? So this is an advisor, business advisor out there who has taken one of my courses in the past, a pricing course, used the spreadsheet, loves the spreadsheet, the pricing worksheet, sat down, did this thing as a service, or I think as a favor for one of her clients, and then sat down and said, hey, Mr. or Ms. Client, I think your pricing is too low, and here's why. Because these bookkeepers, this advisor, has access to all of the financial information on that particular company. So what an awesome thing for someone to do is to walk into your office, and say, hey, I've got some incredible insights that I want to share with you, and then walk through it all, and then to have the person just sit there and go, no, I don't believe you. Well, there's a huge failure rate, as we know, in small business ownership, and that's one of the reasons, right? It's just people just don't want to listen. But I also think that, remember where we started on our pricing journey. We started with the first C, which is confidence. And there's a lot of business owners that are out there that don't have the sophistication and the background and the insights. And so, our job as advisors is to find ways to pave that pathway. And so, maybe go back to the confidence one, go back to those pages I think it was pages 5, 6, and 7 in the worksheet, and maybe start to use some of that language and some of those questions to help to surface some of the root issues. Not that the person doesn't want to be successful, not that the person doesn't want to raise their price, not that the person doesn't believe you, is that there's something blocking there. And so that's really what the job is to help to undo that blocking. And that, my friends, is a task that's well beyond today's session, and indeed any of these sessions. So, but keep at it. And you know what? Keep at it, because 4 out of 5 or 9 out of 10 of your clients will absolutely be grateful for you to bring this stuff to them. We also talked last time about, who's interested in putting together a group session. And there were some of you who said in the survey that you were interested. If anyone else, didn't get to the survey, first of all, you can still go and do it. because I'll take a look at the survey in the next 24 hours. And then, and Steph and I are because of the interest, we're working up something. So we'll have some, we're gonna work it up. We're gonna talk to each other tomorrow, try to figure out what that looks like. And so next week we'll have something. But in the meantime, share, use email. If you have specific questions, use the email, get in touch with us. But we will have some kind of group session, and we'll talk about it next week. All right. Note from our sponsor. This is a part of what the new website looks like for face-to-face broadcasting, which we're using right now. It's the ability to instantly create a classroom or a meeting, or in this case, a webinar. Instantly create a webinar in your browser and have up to 1 million people watching you and your presentation, which is what I'm doing right now. And down at the bottom in small type there, here, I'll show you, just get the full effect of this. Up to 1 million attendees, no downloads. And of course, you can share the screen and your slides and videos and anything else that you want to share. So what's the update? The update is that we're actually buffing and polishing face-to-face, the beta 2 version, which again, I keep telling you how sweet it is. And I am dying to show it to you. And we'll be working on it over the weekend. I hope to show it to you early next week. More than that, I can't say. I hate to set expectations. I've done that too much and not been able to satisfy you all. All right, let's keep going. How to use your competitors to gain valuable insight into your customers. How to use your nasty old competitors who are good for nothing else except get in the way of you trying to build your successful business. Here's what we're going to do is without them even knowing about it, we're going to go use them in ways that they've never imagined, and we're going to gain valuable insights into your customers, and we're going to do that by the end of this lesson. Our objectives are this. Our objectives, hey, cameras on. Our objectives are this. We are going to understand the difference between direct and indirect and status quo. So direct, we're not talking about competitors, direct competitors, indirect competitors, and the status quo. We're going to have an introduction to the value continuum. Ooh, that sounds fancy. I like the sound of that. And look at these words, right? How many words do you know that have 2 U's beside each other?
Vacuum.
Vacuum. All right. Is there any others? Use the chat. Tell us. Understand how competitors give us valuable insight into our customers. And then we're going to use the pricing spreadsheet to record this stuff. And it is actually going to graph and display it's going to splash our competitors' information all over the screen so we can take a look at it. And then I'll show you how to put that to good use. All right. That's our objectives. Whoa, a lot of brightness there. Okay, so you've seen this before. The first mistake is that we don't accurately figure out what our costs are, and so we end up down here as a starting point, and then we create a mistakenly calculated price, which puts the squeeze on us. So we figured out how to get away with that a couple of episodes ago, and we know now how to calculate a properly calculated price, but a properly calculated starting price. Because what we're doing is we're going to use that not as any kind of ceiling, but we're going to use that as the rung in our ladder, put our foot on it, and vault ourselves up so that we can then talk about, just like that, so that we can then talk about our competitors' prices. And that's what we're going to do today. But again, not so that we can kind of understand where they're at so that they can become a ceiling to us. Why do we want to give our competitors the power over us so that they define what our offerings are, what our pricing is? It's like we brought them into our, strategic planning session with them, and we sat them at the head of the table, and we let them dictate how we're going to run our business. We don't do that, and we're not going to do that. And in fact, what we're going to do is we're going to do this. We're going to just basically put our foot on the tops of their heads, and we're going to use that as a way to vault up to the next level, which is the jumping off point to unlocking value for our customers. Hey, there's an ice cream cone up there.
Just so happens.
What's that?
Just so happens.
Just so happens. Lots of ice cream cones, and we're turning into winter. So, what happens to the ice cream business in winter? Just give us a brief kind of insight into what happens to an ice cream business.
Well, all of my competitors go to sleep, but I found a way to market it, and I call it Sweatpants and Netflix season. So my sales actually doubled or tripled, I think, the first year that I went into wintertime.
Come on.
Yep.
Come on.
Yep. And everybody said it couldn't be done, but I did it. So I call it Sweatpants and Netflix season, and I sell more pints than I do at any other time of year. Plus, it's entertaining season. Everybody wants ice cream with their pie.
Absolutely.
So there you go.
That's awesome. Well done. All right. So
competitors, though, use my competitors.
What's that?
I used my competitors to see what they were doing, and nobody was doing it, so that gave me the inspiration. So there you go. That's
great. All right. Tana eats ice cream all year long. Okay, Tana.
Yeah!
That's your secret. No one else has figured out another word that's got 2 U's in it. Come on, you people. All right. So we're going to talk about here direct versus indirect competition. Whoops. And here's how we're going to do it. I got a twitchy mouse. Okay, so if we're in the process of selling, if we're in the business of selling ice cream, we all know what direct competitors look like. They look like this, okay? It is, in this particular case, looks like a McDonald's ice cream cone, but clearly we're selling ice cream, they're selling ice cream. That is direct competition. Indirect competition is someone going, you know what, I'd like a treat, and I think ice cream would be one option, but there are other options, right? So chocolate could be, I know for me, chocolate could be a good option. And think about you're going for a gift for 2 U's right beside each other. Someone said guru, right beside each other. But good try, Sheila, good try. Think about you're going for a gift for your sweetie. You've got 20 bucks in your pocket and you're going in. You could get flowers. You could get a card. You could get chocolates. You could get maybe some inexpensive jewelry. I mean, there's a lot of things, right? So those are substitutes for each other. What we also want to understand is status quo. What is going on in the life of that customer, that potential customer, right this minute? And here's what could be going on right now, right? I'm walking by an ice cream store and I got that on the end of my arm. And anyway, listen, I've got 2 kids and I used to have a 4-year-old daughter who sometimes looked like that. And you know what? Boy, do I ever want to know that I'm suffering at this point, right? If I've got that on the end of my arm, I'm suffering. And we want to understand that as well, right? There's a cost to standing still. So I could buy this, I could buy this, or I could buy nothing. And it's important for us to be able to understand what the costs are in those particular situations. Imagine I've got a small leak. I've got a small leak going on somewhere, right? If I let that leak go or let that drip go or something like that, is there going to be an increased level of cost by doing nothing, okay? So that's the difference between direct, indirect, and status quo. Another phrase, customer's willingness to pay. A customer's willingness to pay. So a customer, when they pay for something, they always have a willingness to pay by definition because they've paid for it, right? And the customer definition is by definition higher than all the prices that are out there, right? If the customer willingness to pay was here and the price was here, then by definition, they are unwilling to pay for that. And so what we know, the first thing that we know about our competitors' prices, once we start to look at it, is that there is probably a gap. There's always a gap between our price and our competitors' prices and the customer's willingness to pay. So the first bit of information that we can learn is what's the top end? What's the top end of the customer's willingness to pay, right? But there's another truth as well, other than the customer's willingness to pay is always a little bit higher, somewhat higher than the competitive pricing. Every customer is different from every other customer. And so when we think of the customer willingness to pay as a horizontal line, it's actually not horizontal at all, is it? The customer willingness to pay line is something like this. It's on an angle. And some customers are willing to pay more, and some customers are willing to pay less. Okay? Does that make sense to everyone, right? Some people are willing to pay more for an ice cream cone. Some people are willing to pay less. Some people are willing to pay more for an ice cream cone when they have a screaming child on the end of their arm. And when they're just by themselves, then maybe they're willing to be less. We've talked about some of this, and we're going to revisit the mindset of the customers and some of these things as we roll forward in the next two ones. Yeah, where are there? Deb says, where are there more of those types of customers who are willing to pay more? All right. Now, when we have this, what we do is we then have a range of prices that we could price our product at, and we got to pick one, right? So we pick a price and we put it somewhere in the middle, right? But our competitors are also doing the same thing. They're also picking a spot on that line for their price, yeah? And so what we end up with is a chart that looks something like this. I'm going to just kind of remember that other one. We're going to come back to it, right? So here is the other one, customers' willingness to pay, right? Now what I've got is the competitor prices. And then down at the bottom, I've got a quality value. It's actually like this, right? I've got a quality value on my x-axis, right? So we've got to pick a price. So what we're going to do is we're going to just put ourselves smack dab in the middle, right? So that we can do some analysis and we can start to take a look at the area around that, right? We can take a look at the ones that are higher in price, lower in price, higher in value, lower in value. And as soon as we do that, what we end up with is, and because we're in the middle, it creates 4 obvious quadrants. And the quadrants look like this. So if, again, if we were selling, we were Dairy Queen ice cream, right? This is us right here. Then there's going to be competitors who have a lower price and probably lower value as well, right? And so think about McDonald's ice cream, right? It's not $1.99, it's $1.99. Sorry, it's not $1.99, it's 99 cents, right? So that's lower price, lower value. Then we have another quadrant, which is higher price, higher value. And again, if we're thinking about, if we are Dairy Queen right in the middle, then we're probably thinking Pleasantville ice cream up at the top here, right?
Yes.
Higher price, higher value. Maybe Haagen-Dazs is up there as well, right? I can't get Pleasantville stuff out here in Victoria, but I sure can get Haagen-Dazs. Exactly. And what we end up with now is the standard value continuum. The standard value continuum. So Sheila, when you suggested continuum, that's where we started. So you've already used the word continuum. We've already used the word vacuum. Someone's got to come up with another word with 2 U's in it that are right beside each other. Okay, so this is the standard value continuum. No surprises there. However, there's 2 more quadrants that we need to evaluate. Higher price, lower value. Let's say that again. Higher price, lower value. Somebody's getting away with something here. They're charging more than us, but delivering the same or even less. It doesn't sound fair, does it? Nope. So if we put our neighborhood coffee shop down there, then some people might say that Starbucks was over here, right? Some, up in the northwest corner. Some people, not saying that I would, but some people would, right? And so right? It starts to beg questions, right? How are they getting away with that? How can they charge more for what on the face of things looks like my ice cream or my service or my cup of coffee? What are they doing differently that allows them to charge more, and in some cases a lot more, and deliver the same or less, right? So this is sometimes called the opportunity quadrant, because it looks like the easiest way to generate additional gross margin, right? Why don't I just raise my price? But what it is, it's an insight that there are customers out there who are potentially willing to pay more for our offering, but who are definitely willing to pay more for offerings that are in our competitive space, right? Awesome. So Adam, question, is value dollars only, or are you including brand? Adam, that's a great question. And what we're trying to do right now is use this to try to understand, exactly what the extra difference is. And, some people would say, and we don't know yet, But we have to ask ourselves the questions. We have to lay out our competitors to try to get a sense of, is their value that they're delivering greater or less, and is their price greater or less? And just by doing that, we will end up with a spray of competitors around us, and we can start to ask questions. And some of the questions may well be, what else are they offering? You know, is it just simply brand, or is Starbucks offering, you know, the third place, the home away from home, that kind of comfortable setting, that, right? Those are the questions that have to be asked. Deb Mumu, awesome. So we've got another little bit of game going on here in the chat, right? Which some of you, and if you're watching this recorded, can't see, but the challenge is to come up with words that have two U's, like continuum and vacuum, beside each other. Anyway, let me keep going on what we're really here for. Way to go, Deb. The other quadrant is lower price, higher value. Ooh, that really hurts. This is someone who's doing maybe a better job or delivering higher value into our community, to our potential customers, into the same mix of customers, but has actually got a lower price. So this is, begs the question, how do they do that? This is a real threat to us, right? This is a real threat as we take a look down at that corner of the continuum to try to see who's down there and what they're offering. This is kind of like how Uber is challenging taxis, right? Same type of thing. This is very much like how face-to-face is challenging, or will soon be challenging, all the paid competitors that are out there doing not such a good job. You know, what again we want to do is absolutely, it's on our mission statement from 18 months ago, we absolutely want to and will deliver a far superior experience for our customers at a far lower price, i.e. zero, right? So that's what that quadrant is all about. It's called the challenger quadrant because that's where the most obvious threats are. But not only does it ask, how do they do that? It also prompts us to ask, could we do that? Should we do that? In some of our former discussions, you'll remember back to our episodes on thinking and planning, back in episodes 2, 3, 4, and we talked about Kodak, who was king of the hill for so many years, and then for 100 years, a century, and then went out of business in 10 or 12 years. It took them to go from their height to Chapter 11, to bankruptcy. Why? I think in large measure because they were ignoring the challenger quadrant. So there are lessons for us to learn there as well. All right. We already got vacuum. Okay, so continuum, vacuum, Mumu. Any others? You should be focusing on the lesson though, but it's a lot of fun. Okay, so let's take a look at it as an example. I want to walk through an example with you and maybe a couple of examples, but the first one I've got here is on bookkeeping services. And I keep picking on bookkeepers, or using them, not picking on them, but using them as an example because A, I know a lot of bookkeepers, but B, everybody, it's an example that we can all relate to, right? We are a bookkeeper online right now watching this, or we have a bookkeeper, or we should be thinking about getting a bookkeeper, so we know what they do, right? So, and when I say bookkeeping services, it's really any type of service type organization. And even if you make stuff, even if you make products, product-based company, you still could be thinking about extra services that you're wrapping around here, right? So let's go through here. Okay, so let's assume that we are trained and certified bookkeeper. So we're trained, we're certified bookkeeper, or we're a consultant with great experience and depth of knowledge, or we're a plumber who's been to plumbing school, and again, we've got that. We got our Red Seal chef. We're a web designer who, we know our stuff, right? And so we are, we're not starting off with no experience and no certification and no nothing, right? So we've got something there. For each of those types, bookkeepers, consultants, plumbers, you name it, there's always somebody less experienced. There's always someone less certified, the uncertified bookkeepers, which are going to be down here typically, and they're typically going to charge less, right? And for each of us, there's going to be someone more certified, more experienced. For a bookkeeper, maybe it's accountants, right? Accounting firms who do, I don't know, we got Adam, the CPA is from Australia, is on right now, and we're going to talk about this. I won't let him talk just yet, although he'll be chatting, right? So some people will say that that for your bookkeeper, and CPAs, accountants will often say, listen, we deliver higher value, and that's why we have our higher price. Okay, so let's explore that a little bit. So the first thing is that we start to map this thing out. We have our lower value, lower priced people down here, so our uncertified people, and then up here we have the higher price, the more experienced consultants, the accounting firms, perhaps up there, but some of these blanket statements, accountants just do a better job than bookkeepers, right? They're tough. You start to get into arguments, right? And so that's what we need to start to tease these things apart and take a look at the individual services, right? So let's leave that there. That's the bookkeeping landscape right now. That's the traditional value continuum, or the traditional value moo-moo. No, it's the traditional value continuum, but there's a challenger coming from here, and it's a company called Receipt Bank, and there are others. And what Receipt Bank does is they basically allow anybody, the bookkeeper, or sorry, the business owner, to take their cell phone, take a picture of a receipt or an invoice, and then that's it. What Receipt Bank does is it uses a combination of technology and optical character recognition and cloud-based whatever, and some people, and it takes that receipt, knows that it's yours and your company's, digitizes it, turns it into a transaction, puts it into your online accounting software so that literally 9 seconds later, it's in your books, properly showing up, properly coded in the proper time frame. It's just like, hang on, that's what bookkeepers used to do. They would take my thicket, my shoebox worth of stuff, and they would analyze it, code it, put it into some kind of software, and spit out financial statements. Now Receipt Bank does that. And so, what do I want? What am I going to do with that? And so that they are actually transforming the nature of bookkeeping. And so they're not going to go away, and technology isn't going to go away. So we got to figure it out, right? How to respond or not, and what to do with it. Okay, so but there's good news, right? And so bookkeeping services, there's not really a higher price, higher value when you take a look at just that, but that's when we start to tease things apart. And there's some good news is we can start to look at business advisory services, whatever that looks like. But let's start to tease this apart and go, okay, Ms. or Mr. Bookkeeper, you're in with that client and you're putting their books together. And now, is there any additional value that you could do? So let's take a look at that service, and let's put it right in the middle again. And let's imagine that there are people who are not as experienced as you and lower value, higher priced people than you, higher value. So for example, let's just go through some of these. I think that the first thing we want to talk about are consultants, right? Consultants who have deep expertise in a narrow area. Like they're just deep into sales analysis. They're deep into marketing. They're deep into manufacturing, right? Those people clearly have an advantage over anything that we're going to be able to offer. They deserve the higher price because they're delivering significantly higher value than us, right? What about accountants? Well, it depends on what kind of advisory services they're doing. I would say that some of that stuff that they're doing, if it's in their domain, clearly higher value, clearly higher price, like if they're doing, tax advice. But some of the stuff that they do, that accounting firms do, may not be something that we can't do. If they're doing QuickBooks or, accounting software setup advisory work, well, we could do that, right? But they just happen to be charging more. They just happen to be charging more for something that's the same and maybe even not as good service or quality for all kinds of reasons, right? Let's leave it there for the moment. I'm going to take a look at the at the chat here. What have we got? Cloud-based accounting services such as Xero are really putting pressure on prices. It's impacting the perception of value. It's exactly right, Adam. And so what are you going to do about that? What are you going to do about that? It's how about using the technology to help to make the client more efficient, to help to get their financial statements quicker, and then to build something on top of it, something like interpretation or analysis or some kind of advisory service, right? And we're going to talk a lot about that, right? Interestingly, while accountants are perceived as one of the most trusted business advisors, customers just think they could do it. Yeah, that's right. That's actually true. There's some, I don't know what it is, pigeonholed. We do this, we do that, we do audits, we do year ends. It's tough for some accountants to break out, right? Which comes down to some of the marketing. And again, I used to work inside an accounting firm for 5 years, so I have a real strong sense of what that's all about. And you're right, it's tough for them sometimes to do that. At any rate, that's, if I'm a bookkeeper and I'm sitting here thinking about doing advisory services and I look out in the world, I see a lot of people who are charging more for this, not a lot of people charging, there's no real challengers, there's no real automation, because this really is on the ground stuff, right? Tougher to automate that. And so this area here for us is fertile ground. Moving up for a bookkeeper into this particular area feels it's natural. We're on site every month. We're meeting with the customer. The customer has some trust in us, and there's probably a whole range. If we were to take that advisory services and break that down into different challenges, like as we did with our canvas, our business canvas, as we start to drill down into that, we can start to tease out different pieces that allow us to address different particular customers, right? And there's room to move for us to go up in price. Lots of room to move for us to go up in price. Now, what happens when we do this kind of competitive analysis is that the basic question that comes up is, well, why can't the competitors simply lower their prices? Like, why couldn't they just simply lower their prices to make it less attractive for us to move up? And there's no slide on this, so I really want you to listen to this carefully, because in fact, I'm going to do this just to give us a different perspective. So why can't the competitors just simply move down move their price down in order to squeeze us? Well, the fact of the matter is that when you have your price at a certain level, it's there for a couple of reasons. First of all, from a marketing perspective, from a branding perspective, you want to keep your prices high. We have started to talk about that, and we'll talk about it more. You actually don't want to erode that. Also, going down with your prices, if customers are used to paying this type of price and all of a sudden you lower your price, it typically means that they're paying too much. And there's going to be some kind of pushback from your customers who are going to get upset. The other thing is that when you have your price at a certain level, your internal economics starts to grow to use up that price. You spend more on staff, you spend more on space, you spend more on marketing, you spend more on, you just take out more yourself personally. Okay, now go shrink that price. Any one of you right now who has got a particular price, okay, go think about shrinking your price. Take 25% off your price. How does that feel? Well, you can't. Like, okay, you're going to go home and you're going to talk to your spouse. You're going to say, hey, honey, to avoid the threat of whatever, I've decided to reduce my prices by 25%. So I'm going to be taking home 25% or 10% less or whatever it happens to be on a weekly and monthly basis. Okay, go have that conversation. Have it with yourself, have it with your staff, have it with your spouse. Okay, it's just not going to happen. And so let's get back to, right? Am I right or am I right?
Once you said it, leave it alone.
Exactly right.
And then raise your bar to continuously meet it and continuously aim to raise the bar.
That's exactly right. That's exactly the point. That's exactly the point. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, no, it's awesome. And so if you find yourself looking at a analysis I lay out a competitive analysis chart like this, don't be afraid about them coming down. It's almost impossible for them to do it. What they will do, though, is they'll use their additional margins to market more heavily. They'll outspend you in marketing. They'll outspend you on sales. They'll outspend you on some of the other things. But that's okay. They can't outspend you on delivering a higher price service to the clients that that already know and love you, and then to use that to go and build out that particular practice. Okay. And there's other things about CPAs that I don't want to get into it, but that's what that's all about. Okay. And again, just to reinforce it, that if you can do a good job here, there's a lot of room for movement in your price. There's a lot of additional margin. And what ends up happening is, imagine if you're, as we shall see, if your bookkeeping rate is, if you're doing 100% of your time right now is on bookkeeping services at, let's say, $50 an hour, and then you add a little service here and you end up getting, let's say, 10%, just 10% of your time, but at $90 an hour. Look at what happens. You can do the math, but I think your average price goes up by $4 or $5. Right, so your total average monthly rate goes from $50 up to $54 or $55 just by bringing in an extra service, pricing it appropriately, and that's what we want to do between now and December, between January 1st and March 31st. Right? You heard me say it last time. Somebody said, "Hey, you know what? I took your advice from 6 months ago, and I'm simply avoiding taking on those $20 an hour clients. And what's happened is that my average margin has grown." Right? That's what happens. Okay, huge economic incentive.
Robert just contributed, you are not selling price, you are selling value. And I really, really, really love that.
That's exactly right. And as I've said before, what we're going to do by the end of this pricing session, we are going to completely divorce the linkages between pricing and underlying costs. We're going to completely divorce that. Okay, so this is just, we're getting there. So thanks, Amazon. Yeah. Okay, so let me just go back to the slide here. Whoa, okay, so take a look at this slide right here. And so we got competitor prices, quality, value, us in the middle, 4 quadrants. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to change the slides. Whoa, okay. This is just about, in our magical spreadsheet that you've started to use, there is a competitive analysis chart in there that looks almost exactly like what we've just been talking about. And so the colors aren't there, and the dot in the middle is blue, not green. But what it shows you is over here, it shows you how competitors' prices compare to ours, right? They're the same, they're less, or they're more. And then how competitor offerings compare to ours, they're the same, they're worse, they're better. Okay? So I'm going to change the slide again. And this is what it's going to look like. Okay, so I'm going to take a sip of tea. I just want you to absorb that for a second. Okay, and before we go any further, what I want to do is I want to revisit the first chart that I showed you today because it's important, right? So we're going to just change the screen again. There's a blue dot right in the middle. Customer's willingness to pay, right? There's that angle going up. Well, it turns out, you know what this chart does because we've talked about it, and you know what the other chart does, the competitive analysis chart does. Well, it turns out that these two things lay over top of each other exactly like this. And so why am I showing you this? Because it turns out that our customers' willingness to pay can be mapped by examining our competitors. Right? So I started off by saying, hey, listen, there's an angle and we got to pick a line and we got to pick a spot in the line and we just got to put our price in there and see what happens, right? But now what we get to do is now we understand that theory. We get to go and take a look at our competitors. We get to chart our competitors, and we get to have an understanding that our customers' willingness to pay line can actually be derived by charting our competitors, right? The value and continuum reasonably flows up there. You can still see our 4 quadrants. All of the other questions, all the other questions are there. Okay, that's where we're going to be going in just a sec. And the questions that start to come up as I start to do this, beg us to go and revisit our business canvas, because the questions are, how is that competitor getting away with setting that price so high? What else are they offering that we are not? What other customer challenges are they meeting that we are not? And of course, challenges can be very, very specific and obvious, like, okay, I've got an investor, I need some financial statements, but they can be other things as well. They can be experience-based. They can be kind of more emotional-based, more why-based, more Simon Sinek-based stuff, right? And as you, for example, if we're a coffee shop and we're trying to understand why and how Starbucks is able to charge 2.5 times what we charge for a cup of coffee, how is it that we're able to do that? Well, they provide a homey atmosphere. They provide soft music. They provide a brand that communicates all of this stuff because they spend so heavily on marketing that brand so that people believe. As soon as they see that green circle, they absolutely know what that means. I've traveled around the world, and whenever that green, for example, you walk into, where was I? And I saw it from, it was like a mile away. I was in Kowloon, and I had no idea. I had no idea where I was. There was a heavy pollution fog, which means I couldn't see my way around, literally couldn't see my way around. And yet out of the gloom, I saw this green circle. And of course, I'm going to go to it, right? Because there's a promise there. So those are the types of things that we have to start to ask, and going back and revisiting your business canvas is an excellent way of doing that. Out of that, you've seen this stuff before, right? Out of that, we then can maybe start to think about adding anything in your strategic roadmap, not for the time between now and December 31st, right? Because that we've got our strategic map. We don't want to deviate from that, but you want to start putting something in there, ideas for your next quarter, for January 1st to March 31st. Maybe what you do add into this month's strategic roadmap, this quarter's strategic roadmap, is more about this. I want to complete my BusinessPRO TV. For sure, I want to make notes. For sure, I want to understand more about my competitors. And so it's all that learning and understanding. That's what you want to keep doing, okay? But remember that strategic roadmap, there's a new one every quarter. Okay, pricing spreadsheet. Any questions, Steph, from you or from anyone else?
No, I think that you're spot on. Everything that you're saying, I'm quiet because I'm like, yeah, this is great, and I'm glad you're covering it all. Looks like everybody else is probably furiously taking notes, though. I'm sure.
Awesome. All right. Well, let's get into the pricing spreadsheet, and I found out a new and easy way to do that. I just have to go bing, and there it is. Okay, so what I've done here is I've taken the exact same worksheet that all of you have access to, and I've made a copy of it just exactly the same way that you have. And I've gone in here and I've thought, okay, well, let's go and be a, and I'll maybe take your and my faces off for just the moment here, Steph. I've thought to myself, okay, let's be a bookkeeper who's got a subcontractor. So, and I've got a subcontractor, a young person that I know that whenever I get bookkeeping services, I'm able to, if I want to, I can give that person my bookkeeping services, and they'll do a great job of it, and they cost me $30 an hour. So then my fixed cost, don't include that person because they're not a staff. So my fixed costs are my accountant, because my accounting. I'm actually going to pay, I'm not going to do my own bookkeeping. I'm going to get this person to do it, and I'm going to pay them. So it's costing me 5 hours a month at $30 an hour. That's a fixed overhead, fixed cost. Communications, of course, insurance. You people all know this, but for those of you who just want a gentle go through of it, that's what I'm trying to do here, right? Lease payments for some equipment, computer equipment I have. I spend about $400 in keeping my website up and doing a small Facebook campaign. I pay rent because I've got a small office outside my home. It's awesome. I don't have any staff. So, supplies about $100 a month. And then I do not make this right now. In fact, I make as a bookkeeper, I make a lot less than this. But what I absolutely want to make, if I could make $6,000 a month, then that would be awesome. And so I put that aspirational salary and benefit up there, right? I want to factor in the future and make sure that I've got that higher price in there, because that then will impact on the prices that I'm going to set. All right? I'm keeping an eye on the questions if there are any, but I'm going to keep going. Now I go to my variable costs. And what I've done here is I've taken what I used to do, which is just bookkeeping stuff, and I've teased that apart into 4 specific services. Yes, there's the bookkeeping stuff, but there's also this business advisory stuff. There's some tax advisory stuff. We'll talk about that a little bit. And then there's some QuickBooks Online advisory stuff. What I do is I want to be able to help my clients get online with QuickBooks or maybe Xero or some other online software, because it makes my life more easier. It makes their life more efficient. And I really want to help them do that and not let my competitors beat me to the punch there, right? It's good for everybody. And once I get one of my clients to use QuickBooks Online, it gives me a whole raft of other information that then I can feed into my business advisory practice. So you see how that works? All right. The batch of these, I'm selling by the hour for these ones. Again, we haven't got to episode 6 yet, where we don't sell by the hour anymore. Still sell by the hour. My total variable cost here is $30 an hour for the bookkeeping. Remember, whenever I get a bookkeeping client, I am actually going to pay my subcontractor $30 an hour and get them to do it for me, which then will free me up over the course of the coming years. I grow my practice. It'll free me up to do the other higher level stuff. Okay, my maximum capacity is 130, right? So if you put these things in or not, it doesn't really matter. What's reasonable? I can do 100 hours here a month, 32 hours here, maybe an hour a week here, 4 hours a month, and maybe 32 hours. If I did this, I'd be busy. My subcontractor would be busy, and let's see what happens to then my pricing. So I'm going to allocate my overheads, 50%, 25, 25, right? Just more or less based on kind of revenue. I don't have any channel costs. In other words, I'm not paying anyone a commission or an affiliate fee, or I'm not selling on Amazon where they take 55%. So I have nothing like that. I have a $400 a month marketing campaign, and that's a regular amount that I pay every month. And so that's already accounted for, as you saw in my fixed costs, right? So I'm going to ignore this full capacity stuff, and I'm going to get right down to this floor price per product. What this is saying, the floor price is, it's telling us this is the price that you should be thinking about setting your normal price at. That's the computer doing some analysis and some thinking for us, and it's more or less accurate, right? Just more or less accurate. But if you were to set your floor prices at these levels right here, it's going to guarantee you that it's going to cover off all your fixed and your variable costs, okay? And so what we've decided to do is, I can't charge $70 an hour for bookkeeping, but I can charge $50. And $50 allows me to pay for my, some of my overheads. It allows me to pay for my staff, and I probably will do a little bit of review. I probably got a little bit of administration time to review the file before it goes back to the client. I'm then going to set my business advisory and my tax advisory and my QBO advisory fees here, and you can play around with that, okay? And then let's go see what happens down here. So if you just chose or used the recommended prices, the recommended floor prices, you'd end up with revenue of this, cost of goods sold of this, other expenses of this, and you'd end up with an absolute break even. Perfect, right? If you set your prices here, 50, 90, 90, and 90, what you then end up with is making just a little bit more, covering all your cost of goods sold, cover all your overheads, and you got $20, right? Cover all your overheads here, and you got $20 extra, right? And then if you think that, for example, your business, if you want to really push the envelope, if you're thinking that there's some business advisory stuff out there that I know that I could do really, really well, and I'm going to start to differentiate myself and get that up to 120. The accountants and the consultants they're charging 135, they're charging 140, they're charging 160. For the stuff that I want to do, I know that I can do an absolutely fantastic, efficient, top quality job. I'm going to charge $120 for that, right? And then look what happens, right? Here we go. Your revenues goes up, and you're now making an additional $1,000. Are you working any harder? You're not working any harder. You're working the same amount of hours, but what you've done is you've teased apart these various services because you've looked at your business canvas, because you've looked at your competitive analysis, and right, and you've now got this. All right, so that's how you use the cost slides. That's a kind of a bit of a review from last time. I hope that's answered any remaining questions. If not, press replay and go back through it again. Now let's get into competitor prices. So when you get into this tab right here, pardon me, what this worksheet does for you, it puts the services that you've defined in the previous slide, just puts them all across here. It puts them in red to let you know, don't type into areas that are red, right? Type into areas that are yellow. Type into cells that are yellow. And so let's take a look at bookkeeping. Well, for bookkeeping, there are uncertified bookkeepers out there, and they charge $25 an hour. So, we want to try to keep as consistent as possible. If we're charging by the hour, let's put in an hourly rate here. CPAs, when they do bookkeeping, they're charging, remember, they got higher overheads, and they've got a structure, where there is a partner going to have to review that file because the partner is trying to protect the audit part of their business. So you're absolutely going to have a CPA taking a look at the bookkeeping file to make sure that it's accurate, right? Which means that they've got to be charging, $75 an hour. And how are they? How does this item compare to your offering? Well, they're about the same. Theirs is better. Theirs is worse. Well, they're about the same. They don't do anything more on the bookkeeping side than we do. They just cost more, right? And keep going down, and we have some indirect competition, right? So this spreadsheet goes down a little bit more, right? 3 direct competitors, 3 indirect competitors, which is more than you need. There's Receipt Bank. They charge a kind of a monthly fee, but I'm just going to say that it works out to about $10 an hour, and they're about the same as us on the bookkeeping side. We're giving them, I think we're giving them a little more credit than what they're, because they don't. But just for the sake of saying they're kind of less expensive, and yet they do about the same, just to show you how that graphs, right? So that's what you do here. That's how you use this. You simply go down here, you go to your business advisory. The uncertified people, they're not doing anything, but CPAs are. They're charging $135. They're about the same as us on just the business advisory stuff. There's BusinessPRO TV. I threw this in just for kicks, right? Are you getting business advisory type of feedback or value from watching BusinessPRO, which is free? Of course you are. And so it isn't as good as one-on-one for sure. And so the price is $0. So again, you want to have an accurate layout because if you don't look at things as they really are, you're not going to be able to do your analysis. Okay. Same thing with tax advisory. Same thing with, there's no doubt about it that this is where CPAs absolutely shine. We can't compete. They go to school, they take courses, they fly away to hot places every year for a week and update their skill sets. They charge $135 and maybe more. Theirs is better. Quite frankly, I really don't want to do tax advisory stuff. I just answer a couple of questions here and there, right? For maybe 1 or 2 clients, that's it. And you keep going, right? Then that's all the hard work. Now here's the easy part. Here's the magic. You go into the competitor analysis and you choose from the drop-down list whatever services you've been entering. Right? Again, a little bit of programming magic here. And as you choose the service, it shows you bookkeeping, which is the name of your service, right? Bookkeeping, always directly in the middle, right? Our price is 100% of our price, and our competitive offering is as good as our competitive offering, right? And then it says, here are the people that are pricing less, right? How competitors pricing compared to ours. This is less than 100%, right? This is for bookkeepers. And for bookkeeping services, CPAs charge more for bookkeeping services. And how do they compare? How do their offerings compare worse or better? And so you can see the 4 quadrants there. Sorry, and I apologize. With this technology, I can't put in all the fancy coloring. I've tried, doesn't work. That's thanks to Google. They do everything else brilliantly, but not this. Okay. Let's take a look at business advisory. Business advisory. All right. So BusinessPRO TV, again, worse offering and lower price, but free. I wonder if, so here's the questions, right? I wonder if I could use BusinessPRO TV with my clients. I wonder if I should be recommending BusinessPRO TV to all of my clients, because what it allows them to do is to come up to speed on some key areas, and then I can come along and have the discussion about and help to fill in some of the blanks. That's an interesting thought, right? That's what you should be, that's kind of the way you should be looking at using these people that are down here if you can, right? You may not be able to, but if you can. CPAs, hey, what does this tell me? They're doing the same work that we are in business advisory stuff, and they're pricing higher. Darn it, I can raise my price. And tax advisory stuff, they're just so much better than us. There's so much, maybe I don't want to offer tax advisory stuff. Maybe what I want to do is have a discussion with a CPA firm that I know and like, and who doesn't maybe offer bookkeeping services. And maybe we create a relationship like that and cross promote each other. Hey, now that is a really powerful way of thinking. And QBO advisory work, again, we're doing it. We're doing great work here, and better than anybody else. And there's no reason why I shouldn't be able to feel comfortable charging what I'm charging, and maybe even think about raising my price. Okay. Let me bring myself back here. Hey, Steph, here she is. Get her mic off. I'm going to pause there for a sec. It's 2 minutes past 6. We're just about where we wanted to be, covering all the material. We covered off how to understand direct versus indirect versus status quo, the screaming child, and the pain that results maybe if I don't do anything, or if my customer doesn't do anything, if they don't get their books done, if they don't take the advice that I'm going to give them. We've already heard from a couple of bookkeepers who said, I can't get my clients to take my advice, so I'm going to not have them as my clients. And that will free up space for me to have. And therefore, I am not going to take that underpriced client, but instead I'm going to leave room for getting a client who values me and what I'm worth. And so I can get my average billing rate up, or my average unit cost up, price up. That's what it's all about. We were introduced to the value continuum, and we talked about vacuum, and we talked about moo-moos. And those are the only 3 words that I know that have 2 U's in a row. We understand how competitors give us valuable insight into our customers, because what they do is I chart them on that document. They help me to map the continuum of the customer's willingness to pay, and they ask questions, or force me to ask questions about why they are more or less. And then we use the pricing spreadsheet just to continue going, just keep going, adding a little bit more information, and then using that to graph that on screen and then to print it out. Okay. So this is what we did. This is what we learned. We put our price in the middle. We learned about these 4 quadrants. We talked about the chart. Now it's up to you to start to apply it. So think about the questions if you have any, but right now we're going to talk about how to apply it. First of all, put episode 9 in your calendar. I know you've already done that. Tuesday, October 17th, 5 p.m. Pacific. Complete the survey. Complete the survey that I'm going to send. I love when you guys ask questions, provide feedback, little course corrections. Really helps to make sure that we're on the right track here. Review the workbook. I'm going to send out another workbook that's got a couple more pages there, just as reinforcement of today. And then use the pricing worksheet to go further. And again, you may want to just grab that screenshot, or maybe I'll send it in an email to you, but use the competitor analysis chart, start asking what features or products do customers value? Why would a customer prefer this over that? How could we adjust to capture some of that value? And use pages 12, 13, and 14 in the workbook. As always, if you're watching this recorded, and in about an hour, if you want to get these resources, go to BusinessPRO.tv, scroll down to the Get Caught Up section. Episode 8 will be up there. I think it should be up in about an hour. And grab it, or first thing in the morning. Any questions? Type them into chat or click Ask to Join. Adam from Australia is waiting patiently. I'm going to bring him in. Next time, how to quantify and increase our customers' perception of value. Hey, you know what? Not only is that line of customer willingness to pay horizontal, we already know that it's on an angle like that, but also it isn't fixed. We can actually take that line and we can adjust it. We can increase our customers' perception of value and then therefore their willingness to pay. And that is just money in our pockets. So Tuesday, money in our pockets time. As always, Alex Glassey, your host, Stephanie Gorczynski, co-producer. Steph, thank you so much. A lot of people don't see this, but what Steph and I do is we spend half an hour to an hour before this show going through every episode, going through what we're going to be talking about. We think through some stories and some examples, and we basically prompt each other. Because it's way better to do this with two people than one, I'm telling you. So I love that time that I get to spend with Steph away from this, and I love the fact that she's there, and when I stumble, she's able to kind of pick me up and move me along. So thanks, Steph.
Right back.
Awesome. Awesome. All right. Brenda, thank you for the comment. Great session. As always, if you're watching this recorded, here's how you get to us next time. And let us move on. Let us move on to after hours. Turn the slide deck off and bring Adam in. Adam, you ready? Start smiling, man, because you're coming on. You'll be here in 3, 2, 1. There he is.
G'day.
Hey, how are things?
Yeah, pretty good. Pretty good.
You're not looking forward to snow, are you?
We've had snow. That's been and done.
You actually get snow?
Yeah. We had this year. We had what do they call it? A thunder. They called it thunder snow for the first time ever, and we got this enormous dump of snow. But what is it? We're in October. We've only just got into spring, and we've already had days up over 35 degrees.
35. And now tell us again what city you're in, Adam? Sydney.
Yeah.
And what latitude are you at?
Oh, it's the geography question again, isn't it?
I
don't know. Do you want me to go and research that and come back to you next week?
You know, we have the internet here as well. I'm sure I could figure that out. But
make that a question in the survey so we can just get the whole. Then you can make a chart with a map and the next, slideshow.
Yeah.
Actually, that's not a bad thing to do, right? Yeah. That'd be interesting.
I know.
Yeah. Hey, thank you. You know what? I'm actually going to. Someone write that down.
I knew that.
So, hey, Adam, what did you see tonight that you liked or didn't like, or questions or clarification?
Yeah, it's so I suppose I work with a bunch of clients, and I put my own money into businesses. And
hang on for just a second. You're a CPA, right?
No, I'm a CEO.
I was just totally maligning you on it. So I knew you were online, so I apologize for that.
See, we rail against the CPAs because we had to work in a professional services firm for 3 years to get our qualification, while the CPAs worked in industry and had all the fun. So we're all bitter and twisted about that. So we got far more time with the photocopier than they did. Anyway. But what is interesting around the pricing is that so one of the clients that I'm doing some work with, they're in the truck industry and they do truck parts, and they're about to put online, and they're the biggest supplier in Australia of truck parts. And what hasn't really arrived in Australia yet is Amazon, and so we're starting to get a lot of Amazon's here, but in terms of Amazon shopping, hasn't really launched here in Australia in any anger, right? So what's happening here is a lot of the people that provide products, not services, but products, are starting to try and figure out what impact is Amazon going to have on Australia. In fact, just after I typed that Amazon, I literally got an email from on a workshop about the Amazon effect and what impact it's going to have on Australia, because Australia is one of the most connected online shopping countries in the world, and second in mobile, and we are the second most web influenced shopping country in the world. Right? Wow. It's astounding, right? So what happens is when businesses come to this point, and these guys are big, they're turning over tens of millions of dollars. Their first thing is, okay, we want to be online, but should we be showing our prices, right? Because the moment we start to show our prices, they can get compared, right? And so I get the services example. That's an interesting thing, and cloud-based accounting has had a dramatic impact on prices for services. In fact, the ATO is actually engaged with Xero to take bookkeeping services almost completely out of the loop. MYOB.
What's the ATO, Adam?
Australian Tax Office.
Wow.
Yeah. So, in fact, last week, MYOB announced, don't worry about your accountant or your bookkeeper. You can just put your GST return straight through from your accounting software, right?
Wow.
So it's happening really quickly. And in the product section, we're all trying to figure out what's going to happen. What's the Amazon effect going to be, right? So it raises some really interesting questions about pricing. And I don't know, about maybe 15 years ago, I was contracting in London, and that was just when, back in the early 2000s, that's when the internet started to grab in terms of recruitment. And what you found there was that the moment that job boards started to post and people could see jobs, what it did was it commoditized all the jobs. It also commoditized all the people who were posting their CVs up, right?
Yep.
So in some ways, the more discoverable things are, the more commoditized they get. The fascinating thing is that a lot of services are trying to make themselves products, which is their pathway to becoming more successful. Yeah, over here you've got that price discovery really driving down prices. I don't think there's one right way of dealing with it. It's just at the edge where it's about to hit Australia, and it will be really interesting to see what's happening. In fact, Myers, for example, which is one of the big chains that you would never, retail chains that you thought would keep on going, is just started to close stores because of the online's they're just getting crushed.
Yeah, and none of this is new, right? I mean, the internet isn't new, and Amazon's not new. But even before the internet and before Amazon, remember that Walmart was doing exactly the same thing with their focus on their size, their visibility, but through the retail side. I mean, they had stores everywhere. And what they ended up doing is exactly as you're talking about. They ended up causing commoditization amongst all the products, and such that commoditization of lots of things, such that they would walk into a town, and lots of the businesses in the town would actually fold because they couldn't keep up with the Amazon's cost structure, right? Their efficiency. And so, so how do you deal with that? Well, you can't compete head to head with them. So you got to figure out, something else. So I think there's lessons there with Walmart. The key thing is that you can't go into any of these things blind. I mean, we don't have the time, and this is not the space for us to solve any of these particular issues. But as business owners, as you've heard me say every single episode, right, it is our responsibility to figure it out. And so I darn well better get my pricing spreadsheet up and running. I darn well better take a look at what's going to happen. I darn well better be able to. I mean, you have to use Amazon because that's where customers are going to be. But again, so you got to work through the various scenarios, and it's people like talk about advisory. It's people like you that are going to sitting and working through these strategic and management level issues that are so valuable, that are absolutely critical. So, and I know you know that already. Yeah,
I mean, I don't think there's one right way. I just saw that comment from Liana there. And this isn't just happening in accounting and bookkeeping; it's happening in advertising and social media as well, right? Because as the tools get better, it's not that people find a cheaper service. They actually insource the service as well. So what people used to buy now is done by companies, exactly what Liana said there, as they've done. The companies do it themselves. The clients do it themselves now.
One of my friends, Mark Stoiber, who some of you have seen and talk, and will know. Anyway, he's based in Victoria, BC. So he has just started to beta test. So he's a marketing consultant and a damn good one. In fact, he is responsible. So a shout out to Mark if you're out there. He is responsible for the name Face-to-Face Broadcasting. I had spent weeks trying to figure this stuff out. And I sat down with Mark and I won't tell you how little it took him because it's embarrassing, quite frankly, to me and my own skills. But he said, so what you're trying to do is you're trying to communicate face to face. I went, yeah. He goes, so what you're trying to do is you're trying to communicate face to face. Thanks. I guess I'm buying the coffee. But anyway,
I'll circle back around again, but it's not there yet. We're still in that upswing of the convenience culture, right? So like Leanna just said, she's being phased out, and this is another platform for us to all being together in the same room. And I mean, it's amazing to see what's happening, and we all have to kind of adapt to that. How do we do that and still retain our humanity at the same time? So, you know.
Right. That's right. Absolutely. But what Mark's doing is he's contributing to this whole kind of potentially negative spiral. Is it? He's just released something in beta called the virtual. I had it right on the tip of my tongue. Virtual agency.
Yeah.
So the virtual agency, right? And so what he's saying is basically, tell us what your market is, tell us this, tell us that, tell us your spend. We will go and deploy your money most effectively across the various channels. We'll assess it using computers. We'll assess it. We'll redeploy. Unbelievable. I used to do something like this back in the day 8 years ago. Anyway, I won't go into that. That's another war story. But I think you're absolutely right. The fact of the matter is that there are still tons of good jobs out there. And right, we hear all the moaning and groaning. Well, manufacturing jobs are on the down and all the rest of the stuff. The fact of the matter is that there are just as many jobs out there, except that they're different jobs, and the skill sets may be different. And so we have to continually move. And right, would you agree? Or
what I found is interesting is that when you doing some consulting and introducing those platforms as tools used to be a good way in implementation, right? But what I'm seeing at the moment is that when you go, you're right, but it's changing really quickly. So when you go and implement those platforms, the consultants that would typically do that business advisory work, who would implement those platforms and earn the dollars, what they end up doing is they end up building the brand for those platforms and not necessarily retaining the value in their business. And you see it in Oracle's done it, Salesforce has done it. Yep. People get on and think this will be helpful. All the people who implemented Xero and QuickBooks and stuff like that, they've made that money. Now they're actually Uber's done it. Eventually, the consultants jump on and look at that. So that's a platform. I'll help implement that. But in the end, the platform squeezes them out. They end up having the information, and the platform gets the annuity income stream as well, which is even more frustrating.
So thanks for all this great news, Adam. I'm about to go switch my tea for something a little stronger. Is there an answer? Is there a direction? Do you have any?
I don't know. Some of the industries, maybe you need to pick the industries that you get involved in, and maybe you need to be careful about how much capital you commit getting in, because you may not get that capital back, or what you think you're going to get a return on it ends up being quite different to what you get. So I'm doing some work in medical as well, in medical centres, and they're going through a renewed burst of profitability, right? So there are some sectors that seem to be doing well. There's others. So yeah, you're right. I think you said you had to pick your markets that you're in before. Yeah, I think some of the things that you would think would be obvious to pick actually probably peel the layers back.
Or you use these. You use the place like your trucking client, perhaps over what they consider as using Amazon as a channel to actually broaden the number of people that they can get in front of them. They're lucky because they get to, when they ship a product, they can put in a card, they can put in something that asks the client to connect with them, outside of the Amazon channel, and they can build on additional services, features, add whatever, have you, right?
Yeah.
So
they're looking at, what I've said to them is we need to look at bundling. How do we bundle, right? Because then we change that price comparison. But there's an investment in trying to being able to do that, and it's easy to say, it's hard to do.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
But if they don't think about it, and it's like everyone else out there, if we don't think about this stuff, we're just walking into traffic. We're just trying to walk across a busy street with our eyes closed at rush hour, and we'll that for sure doesn't work, right?
Absolutely.
And I'll say to you on the other side too, with the Tom just asked me, I'm sure he was joking, but if he could get a pint of my ice cream on Amazon, and I'll be very, you don't have the experience with Amazon that we have here, but with in terms of, and I just say this from a food distribution standpoint in my specialty as a distributor, a lot of my colleagues and I, Amazon is like a nice high end, like, you're going big, that's your distributor. The problem with that, and I say this aside from being a frozen food category, but their margins suck, but they dilute your product. And what's happening now, especially in my industry, and it's probably happening everywhere, is that it's really great to see what Amazon carries. But what's happening is that people are seeing that, and then they're coming back and they're turning back to their local producers. And that is slowly happening, and it's slowly turning. And I don't know how it's going to be where you are, because you guys will probably be like, oh, it's Amazon, great. But it took a little while, but Amazon has gotten so diluted. And then all the stuff with the U.S. political storm and Amazon being peripheral and all this other stuff, I just noticed that people are starting to buy local, and they love it. And they love seeing what's out there, but they love going and having that experience with a company that has a great story, that has a why, a strong why, all that stuff. So there's hope,
Yeah, well, one of the things that Amazon has struggled in Australia, which is like Canada, is the distance. So the supply chain is so complex, right? And so that, it will be interesting. And that's actually held them back because they haven't been able to get their supply chain. So I suppose we should have a look and see what's happened in Canada.
And there's, definitely a lot of people are, I don't know, I'm sure UNFI is worldwide. I feel like it is, but UNFI is something that they don't just deal in food. They deal in a lot of things. And UNFI seems to be the main competitor in Canada they don't have the online spread that Amazon has, but as a distributor, they are massive, and they carved the supply chain out for at least for North America. And I would assume, I know that UNFI tried to get my ice cream down in Australia. So it's happening. It's today we talked about competitors. There's competitors in every single chain. Amazon may have done it first, but people are starting to realize they're not doing it the best anymore. There's people that are
doing it a certain way. They're doing it a certain way.
Right.
It's going to appeal, and
Thank gosh you're not sponsored by Amazon, because they may not like this conversation.
Well, we think they're going to buy us, right? Because they absolutely need some good communications technology.
They do.
And that's a whole other.
Cool.
All right, let me just see what else is up there. I also specialize, says Leanna, in bookkeeping for cryptocurrency and payment processing. So again, there's someone out there, Leanna, good for you, who's looking around at your world and the world of your clients, and you're trying to figure something out. And well done.
She had said above that she was just told that that they downsized her. She was downsized from a client. So I had said, try to focus on your unique skills and play that up, because automation, it can't do everything. We are still human. And at the end of the day, our phones break and our stuff doesn't work, and we try to make it more convenient. And often when it becomes more convenient, it actually becomes less convenient. So if she can figure out a way to make herself unique, she's still an asset, and
that's the way to think.
Yep.
That's the way to think. Hey, listen, are there any other questions out there on the chat, or Adam, any other questions or insights from on the other side of the planet?
No. It's all, I'm here. Listen,
Yeah. Good. Hey, listen, you look good, and the technology seems to be just hanging together beautifully.
Does it make me look better, does it?
It actually does make you look better. Yeah, it's surprising.
It's Friday here, right? So that's why you get the pink shirt unshaven. Right.
Oh, that's right. It's a Friday where you are. That's right. It's not quite Friday here. So
yeah.
All right, everybody. Listen, thanks so much for showing up. Thank you, Adam, for having the courage to come on, and Steph, as always. And we'll see everybody else on Tuesday. Have a spectacular weekend, wherever you happen to be. Go and do your homework. Okay, this is critical stuff.
It is, and don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to look at your competitors, but don't look at them with that competing need. Look at it and rise above. That's what this is all about.
Exactly. All right, Steph, you have a good weekend too.
You too.
See you, everybody.